Hey everyone, welcome to the Copychat Show. My name is Todd Jones. I'm the host, and on this show we discuss copywriting, content marketing, and digital marketing. These are kind of the topics I like to talk about, and I'm fortunate to get some people to come on and talk about it with me. And today I have Josh Garofalo, who is a conversion copywriter for software as a service companies. You may have heard of some of the companies he's worked with, but if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I work with software as a service or SaaS companies. And some of those companies that people might have heard of would be like HubSpot, Hotjar, Wave Apps, the accounting software that a lot of small business owners use. Just a bunch and a whole bunch that you haven't heard of yet. And those are actually some of my favorite projects, the small self-funded companies that no one's heard of, but they're doing amazing work. So basically what I'm doing with companies, if I had to put it in a nutshell real quick, would be, first of all, I do a ton of customer competitor research, make sure that they're positioned properly based on that research. And then I come up with a messaging strategy. And when it's called for, I actually execute the copy myself, depending on, what they have internally and whatnot. But yeah, I typically go from research all the way to execution with SaaS companies.
I think that's one of the things that surprises a lot of people about copywriting. You tend to think about they're wordsmiths, but really copywriters are not wordsmiths per se. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I do my research really, really well, sometimes the end result is that the client says, you know what, our marketing team has it from here. And that's because the writing part is really not the hard part. It's figuring out what to write, what we need to say, what is our unique value proposition, our unique selling proposition? How do we condense that and make it nice and concise so that people understand it? What stage of awareness are people at? Who are they comparing us to? What do they like us for? These are the hard questions that I get paid to answer. And then the writing part, that's the easy part. And that's the reason why sometimes I don't even have to do that part for clients.
It sounds like you're more of a copy strategist.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a gradual progression to that point, and I do still like getting my hands dirty and writing the copy. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, that's where I feel like I add the most value. And then when I'm actually doing the execution, it's always for the most important pages, the most important web pages, landing pages, emails, the things where if we get this right, even if we just improve it a little bit, it's going to pay my fee and then some. So I'm not usually getting deep on like a third tier page that only a few people are going to see and that doesn't really need to convert. That's not where I get involved.
That's interesting. One question before we do the getting to know you lightning round.
Sure.
What would you think are the top 3 most important pages on a website?
I mean, it's going to depend, but when I'm thinking about a typical client for me, it's going to be the homepage. Usually there'll be some sort of product overview or solutions overview page, and the pricing page. The pricing page is often overlooked, but it's so important. And there's a lot of opportunities there that go beyond just listing like your tiers of pricing and letting them make a decision. It's really, I mean, one thing that I really like to do that I see a lot of success with my clients is bringing in like contextual social proof. So if you do enough research, if you talk to enough customers, you'll find some customers making mention about the actual value and that trade-off of it's whatever bucks a month, but now I'm, seeing an ROI of 10x on that investment. If you can bring those types of pieces of contextual social proof onto a pricing page, it's huge. So there's a lot of opportunity there to get involved on that page, even though it's ignored by most. It's an afterthought.
On the pricing page, excuse me, is that more like a sales page? I mean, I guess I know your context is a software as a service industry.
Mm-hmm.
So would that be similar to a pricing page or a sales page?
Yeah, I mean, it's usually short. If I look at like the typical pricing page, it's, you're hardly even scrolling and it's just going to be like, here's the 3 tiers, choose the tier that's best for you. And they kind of leave it at that. And then there's like a sign up button. But I think there's a lot of opportunity there too. I don't want to go into the weeds here because I know this isn't what you want to talk about, but a common pattern that I'll see when I'm looking at things like recorded sessions is people will land on a website. They'll see the headline and be like, okay, this is probably for me. And then they'll go immediately to the pricing page. Mm-hmm. And because they want to see, before I waste any more time on this, is it even in like my budget? And that's where you have to assume that people that are reaching your pricing page, they haven't read all the other content. And so you probably need to summarize some of the key things they're going to get, some of the key things they're going to be able to do. And you want to hit them with some social proof that says, yeah, $100 a month sounds expensive, but this person is saving 20 hours a week because of us. This person, is making an extra $10,000 a month because of us. So $100 is cheap. You have to give like a concise overview of what you're selling on that pricing page in the SaaS context, and you got to shrink that change, shrink that price as much as possible. And that's what you do with like social proof and showing everything you get and everything you're going to be able to do.
That's interesting. I never would have thought about that, but yeah, I mean, you're basing that on what you're seeing people do in the sessions. Okay. I'm sorry for the sidetrack there. I got interested in something, so I wanted to follow it. But let me get to the getting to know you lightning round. And like I did, I changed up some of the answers. So
I'm nervous for this one.
Yeah, you'll be all right. I don't want to like put anybody on the spot or anything. So,
okay.
Favorite dessert?
Ooh, my mom's cheesecake.
Okay. Is it plain cheesecake or
she usually puts cherries on it. Lately she switched to strawberries and like fresh strawberries when they're in season. The best. Yeah.
Sounds good. It's lunchtime here, so that didn't help. Favorite TV show?
Ooh,
ever?
All time. Oh my God, that's a tough one. You hit me with a hard question already. I'm scared for the rest of this interview. There's so many. If I just had to pick about a show that I can throw on at any time and still enjoy it, it's probably Seinfeld, maybe Friends. Those two
that's our era, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Okay.
Definitely.
I can see that. Favorite author?
Let's see. I don't have like an author where I have to read everything that they come out with. But I mean, as a kid, it was Gary Paulson. I love the book Hatchet. It's like a Canadian author. And then now I would say it's, I think his name is Yuval Harari. I think that's how you say it. He's the author of Sapiens. Okay. And I guess Jared Diamond would be up there too. Similar. Kind of
interesting to hear what people, and I think so far everybody has chosen fiction. But I
don't read much fiction.
Are those fiction books or
no? They're nonfiction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I expected somebody, it's going to be a mix. Some people are gonna, because a lot of people lose themselves in a fiction book, and I get that. Kind of like we do movies or whatever. So
yep.
Okay. What would you sing on karaoke night?
Oh God, the shortest song possible with the least amount of range in terms of
Twinkle
notes.
Twinkle Little Star.
There we go. Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Yeah, that would be my song.
All right. Any famous distant relatives?
No, I mean, I only know of one person who's relatively famous with my last name. That's Janine Garofalo, and there's no relation.
Okay. Do you have a personal motto?
I don't. No, nothing that comes to mind. No, I don't have a motto that I live by.
If you could live anywhere, where would it be?
Assuming my family and friends come with me?
Sure. Unless you don't want them there.
No, probably somewhere on the West Coast, definitely like BC.
Oh, British Columbia?
Yeah, for sure.
Where are you now?
I'm in Ontario, just outside Toronto.
Okay.
So we don't have the nice mountains or anything like that here, the ocean. So that would be nice.
Okay. Okay, 2 more questions. What celebrity would you like to meet for a cup of coffee?
Interesting. Most people around the world wouldn't call him a celebrity, but Steve Paikin, who is like, he's kind of like the anchor guy on Ontario's publicly funded like educational channel. And the guy just amazes me. He knows a lot about a lot of things. So I'd love to just sit down with him and pick his brain.
What you would really like is to enter a trivia contest with him on your team, right?
Exactly. He'd be absolutely incredible. So I wouldn't expect anyone except for people maybe in Ontario to know who that is, but I would love to sit down with that guy.
I guarantee you there's at least one person from Ontario listening to this show. So
yeah.
And it's not you. I'm talking about somebody else. But anyway. Okay. Last one. Favorite subject in school?
There's definitely science. Like biology, physiology, psychology.
Yeah. I did not like that stuff. Especially
Yeah.
biology. I didn't like biology.
I thought I was going to go to med school. That was sort of the plan. And then I heard about a master's program that was in like digital entrepreneurship last second. And I completely did a 180 on that and did that
You
instead.
talked about that on one of the podcasts you were on.
Yeah. Probably when people ask, how I got started, it was, I was kind of headed on that track. And I always had entrepreneurship in the background. Like my dad always had me reading entrepreneurship books and business books growing up. And so it was always kind of there. And then when I saw this opportunity in the local tech scene heating up, I decided to make a change last second.
Yeah. So there is health tech, that kind of stuff as well. And we actually, in the northwest corner of our state, which is the same area where Walmart is based out of, there's a lot of biotech companies that are starting up in that area. And so it's kind of an interesting scene as well. And there's a big change in the health. So you still could end up in that area at some point.
For sure. I hope to land some more of those types of projects, but those aren't the ones coming right now. So
sure.
Maybe one day.
We could talk about tech startups all day. I used to write articles about that. So
awesome.
I want to start with one question before we jump into looking at these websites that your audience has agreed to let you talk about. What is the difference between a unique selling position and a unique value proposition?
For most people's purpose, I think you can just kind of mix them together. I think some people make a distinction where the unique value proposition is more of an internal type of thing, and then the USP or the unique selling proposition is actually the thing that your external customers are going to see. But for the purposes of anybody, you can pretty much just mash them together. And it's really just about what do we need to say that will help people understand what we do, who we do it for, and why they should choose us.
So in your opinion, they are pretty synonymous.
Yeah, I don't think you gain much by separating them.
I'm pretty sure I've heard Joanna say they were the same thing, and she kind of just says value prop or something like that for sure.
It's fine. At the end of the day, we're trying to connect our product or service with an ideal customer, and the UVP, USP, whatever you want to call it, is just about, building that bridge and making it nice and easy for them to cross.
So I asked that question, and if you're watching this and you're wondering what in the world is Todd doing here and why has he got this guy on here, that's what I have him on here to talk about value propositions. And so I thought I would ask that question before we launched into our little discussion, but Josh asked ahead of time his email list if they would be willing to have him talk about the value proposition on the website, and several responded. Is that correct?
They did, yeah. I'm not going to be able to go through all of them. I kind of picked a selection of them.
And so what we're going to do, and this is first for Copychat Show and maybe more and down the road, but he's going to share his screen and he's going to go through a handful of these the websites and talk about quickly from a value proposition standpoint.
All right. Are we running? You can see it nice on your side?
I can.
Okay, awesome. So before I do something like this, I always because a lot of people in my position, they like to do these and they act as if they actually know all of the answers without having done the research themselves. So I always like to put a little disclaimer saying, I do not have the context. I have not spoken to these people's customers. They might be doing what they're doing for a very important reason. And if that's the case, stick with it. But really, this is just me going through a page quite quickly, looking for opportunities to make things a little bit better just based on experience of doing it with other companies. So for that reason, take everything I say with a grain of salt. And also, I won't be too mean because I'm not 100% sure about what I'm saying.
That's fine. What we want to do here is talk about how a value proposition looks on a website. So that's, I think it's more than fine. So go ahead.
Yes. So here we're dealing with our friend here, Kareen, who was nice enough to submit her page. So she does a lot of copywriting as well. But this is for a product that she created, which is a physical planner for B2B marketers, B2B marketing teams, which you wouldn't necessarily know from above the fold. I don't see anything about B2B there. The other thing that struck me was that there's definitely a disconnection between the picture in the background and the headline. So I would picture this image in the background of her looking kind of displeased to be better suited for like a pass or a problem agitation solution type approach, where the headline and the subheadline would be hitting a problem. So that was one thing that stood out. And the other thing is that, and I could be wrong, this is one of those cases where I haven't done the research, but my hunch is that people are not dying for a physical planner for B2B marketers. They need to be shown that they actually need this thing. And for that reason, I would actually consider, that past approach that I was talking about. So what is the problem with digital planners as we know them? And then why doesn't the typical run-of-the-mill physical planner fill that void? And then talk about, how P is for planner is the answer to these generic digital planners that aren't doing the trick and these generic physical planners that aren't doing the trick, and then go really deep on those. So I really think you got to build up the problem and then bring in the solution for a product like this. Assuming I'm correct and that people are not fully aware of the fact that they need a physical planner specially created for B2B marketers.
So you can do that, you think, in a above the fold setting, kind of build that problem up a little bit?
You can absolutely start with the problem. It's something worth testing. I know we were talking about Joanna. She's had a lot of success with that as well. And it's just one tool in the toolbox. And when it's used at the right time, it's super effective. I think she used that for Sweat Block, which is one of her famous case studies. So yeah, I think it's worth a try anyways. And at the very least, if you're going to keep this exactly as it is, I think you should look super happy to have P for Planner in your hand. It's an awesome product, something that people really need. And yeah. All right, moving on to my friend Wes Bush, the founder of Product Led. So this is an example of a page that is doing a lot of things right, in my opinion, but I think there's some missed opportunities. And that could be because maybe this page was created before he really took off and his community really took off. So, I love the strong authority play here. Join the world's largest product-led growth community. You know exactly what it is, and you know that you're probably not going to find something better elsewhere. It's a similar approach that I take as well. As soon as I was able, as soon as I landed some of those logos that people would understand, I jumped at the opportunity to sort of make that my calling card. The subheadline does a really good job of talking about the skills, the benefits you're going to get from actually joining this community. So I guess the small little things that I would consider adding here is just give me a glimpse at what's on the other side of signing up. First of all, it doesn't tell me it's a Slack community, even though it is. So you could maybe say join the Slack community. Now, on top of that, maybe if you can show screenshots of the types of questions that are being asked and answered, how active is the community? Like, can you show a thread where someone asked a question, there's like 40 responses? That's a good thing to know. Who's in there? Like specific people. Are there specific people in the product-led community that have joined yours and are answering questions? If so, like single that out, say that, person A, B, and C that is in there answering questions right now. How many people in total would be another thing. Like join our Slack community currently at however many people, if that number is impressive. So these are just some small improvements I would make, but overall, like I think this is doing a really good job. And he touches on some of that here with the logos, but I think it's specific people that will be really interesting. And if at any time you want to stop me, feel free.
That's good.
All right. So Cloud Sponge, let's see here. I have some notes for them because theirs was a little less clear. So with them, I think it's a case of sorry, do you hear a phone ringing? Or is that just me?
I don't, no.
Okay, perfect. Maybe it's just me. Okay. So anyways, Cloud Sponge is an interesting case in that I believe, and this is a really common mistake, that their headline is buried somewhere in their subheadline and throughout their other pages. So one integration, dozens of address books, zero hassle. Unless people are coming here with a really good idea of what Cloud Sponge does and the problem they solve, that's very generic to me. I'm not actually quite sure what I'm going to get when I sign up for Cloud Sponge. The below the subheadline though does a bit of a better job. Cloud Sponge allows your users to share without ever needing to remember, type, or upload emails manually. So that is already, I think, an improvement on the current headline. And then I guess the other thing that's missing is the answer to so what, like, so what if you can do this? And the answer to that is that referral programs tend to grow faster. You get more invitations from your invitation forms. Importing contacts is a lot easier. So these are all things that I would want to learn about quite quickly without having to click the video, which is another common issue is that, video is great, but only a certain percentage of people are going to click the video, and only a percentage of those people are actually going to watch it all the way through. So everything that's important that's in your video, it's got to be in your page on writing as well.
I'm guessing you don't advocate a slider in that area.
I don't love sliders. No. So, I mean, I've watched a lot of recorded sessions for a lot of companies, and it's almost always the case that people, if it's an automatic slider, they do not sit there and watch it. And if it's one where you click through, they don't tend to click through. They just kind of scroll past it. So if it's important enough to be on your page, split it out. Don't be afraid of asking people to scroll. They'll scroll if it's the right information and if it's interesting. All right, professional pen. This one is actually interesting. So content is worthless if it doesn't get you results. I think everybody would agree with that. And I don't think it says anything necessarily new or interesting, especially since, and the person behind this is Anthony Sills, especially since he actually has like some interesting companies that he's worked with. Look at American Express, eBay, IBM, Infusionsoft. So what if this said something like, the B2B content marketer for companies like IBM, Infusionsoft, American Express? Then it's like, okay, I know who this guy is. There's a bunch of B2B marketers out there. Not everybody can make that type of claim. To me, that's a unique value proposition. You have, in a short sentence, elevated yourself to the company of just a few individuals. So I would not bury that. I would plaster these logos and these names everywhere you can, because it's what makes you different. And so Gerard is actually an example of someone doing it a really, really good job. So he's a teacher who does copywriting and marketing strategy for ed tech companies. And so he makes that really obvious. He says he's the real teacher. He understands the ins and outs of business. His logos here, all part of the value proposition, all ed tech. So if you're an ed tech company, you land on this page, how are you going to say no to Gerard and then yes to somebody who's just says like, I do copywriting for businesses, right? It's going to be a very hard thing for you to do. And if you make that decision, it's going to be because of price, in which case Gerard is probably not that interested, because his customers are going to be willing to pay a premium to work with somebody who knows their space, their target audience like nobody else, who actually is their target audience as well. As a teacher, I think he's got
a email lead right off the bat with a lesson.
Yeah, there you go. And
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and you could probably make this even better by saying that it's like specifically for ed tech space, but maybe that's implied. But I mean, this is just an example. I don't have really anything negative to say here. I think it's great. And even if you go further down the page, like the testimonials will talk about how he understands the space and how they're from ed tech companies. So Gerard gets a gold star for sure.
Gold star, Gerard.
Agency analytics. This is a well-established company, so I know that they've got a ton of data that they're sitting on. I guess I like that it's clear for sure, all-in-one reporting platform for agencies, and then it talks about the types of reports below. But I think the so what is missing. Like, so what if all of my dashboards are in one place? And I think that's something that they do a good job of answering in the video. But the reality is not everyone's going to watch that video. Yeah. And so they need to talk about, what does this do for the agency who uses agency analytics? Well, when a client is asking you for this, that, and the other metric, you're going to have it all in one place. When you share your dashboards with your client's not wondering whether or not they're getting ROI for their investment, because they can see it for themselves at any one time. And so obviously we can't put everything in the above the fold section, but we can put some of it. And he does get to some of this further down the page. Like when he talks about automated reports, custom dashboards, fully branded, it's really about elevating your agency to being like a much more professional, data-driven, value-driven entity. So I think there's an opportunity to bring some of that in there. My guess is that he probably came up with this headline really early on when they were first getting started. And really, he just wanted to make it clear at that point. And I think that's good. But I think now they can go, another step further. Now the space is a little bit more mature. And I think I have two more here that we'll cover quickly. Sharon Man, she's our friend. And she would be another example of a gold star. She makes it very clear but what it is that she does and what it is that makes her different. So there are English speaking voiceover actresses. There are French speaking voiceover actresses. There are copywriters who write copy for videos. She's all of those. She's American born, 100% fluent in French. I actually visited her in Paris, and so I can attest that she is 100% fluent. Like, she lives in Paris. And she's a copywriter. So she's able to go in there. If you're like a French company, for example, that wants to reach the broader English market, she can go in there, do the voiceover 100%, know the audience that she's speaking to because she is that audience, and she can write and edit that script. Wow. So, I mean, that's super unique, right? And she makes sure that you know that. And I mean, if you don't think she's worked with big brands, I mean, she does the voiceover for an Nespresso commercial with George Clooney. So,
oh.
Yeah,
I've heard of that guy somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So, and yeah, so Cartier, Estee Lauder, she does an excellent job. And then the last one, Sam Grover, copywriter, content strategy, similar to the professional pen situation in that I write content that helps you, turn leads into paying customers, sell more to existing customers, improve customer loyalty. That's just table stakes. That is the job of content. And the test I always like to give to people is call up some other content marketers as well. Put your page next to theirs. Why are they choosing you? It's going to be luck. It's going to be because they already know you, or they're a warm referral from someone you've worked with. That's a very small market of people out of the broader picture versus anybody who needs content. So if I were to put this next to another page, it would be hard to choose Sam because it sounds just a lot like every other content marketer out there. And then he goes further to say that he basically writes the content for every type of deliverable. And then the logos tell me that he writes logos or writes copy for just about any type of company. And so at that point, it's really hard to choose him as a stranger looking for the best copywriter for my particular needs. And so I always urge people, obviously, if things are going great for Sam, he's making the kind of money he wants to make, the kind of clients he wants, don't change a thing. But if that's not happening, then I always think it's worth taking a look at the companies that you really enjoyed working with, that you did the best work for, look for a trend, and then dig in on that and make that your unique value proposition, that you do these certain things like emails for these types of companies. And if you think that you're backing yourself into a corner, you're not, because the world is a big place. And when you specialize and when people see that you specialize, they'll come from all over the world to work with you. Like, I don't know. I live in Canada. I hardly ever work with a Canadian company. I always work with like US, European, Australian, and then the odd Canadian company. And that's just because I'm focused. And so people are willing to work with the person who's focused on what they need, regardless of where they are. So I always urge people to at least consider choosing a niche and really digging deep.
Yeah. So that would be a question I would have. And I think I brought it up a little bit early on about the niche. And, it can be hard. Some people will say, at least, we're in some of the same copywriting groups. And you'll hear somebody say, I don't have a niche. I enjoy working with a lot of different companies. It works really well for me, et cetera. And I reckon that is definitely the case with a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Would you say, you used the word specialization a while ago. Mm-hmm. How would you define a niche? How would you define the word niche? Is it about specialization of what you do? Is it about industry? Is it about?
It can be both. And I mean, if you're able, I think both is even more powerful. So I could be a SaaS writer, and that would be just industry, but then I might also write blog posts and things of that nature. And I might also write, third and fourth tier web pages that don't see a lot of traffic and they won't pay a lot of money for, but I don't. So I work with SaaS companies specifically. Even more specifically than that, they need to be VC funded or a successful self-funded company. Mm-hmm. So I'm not working with people who are like in the idea stage. And so that already narrows the field even more. And then beyond that, if they don't believe in things like investing in customer research, if they need someone that's going to do like bulk work, like I had an inquiry yesterday from someone who needed like 140 pages done. And I was like, I'm not going to do 140 pages. Like, you're not going to, after we get past, your 10th most important page, the ROI is not going to be there to pay my fee for the other 130 pages. And so this won't work. So if someone wants to work with me and they're not a SaaS company that's VC funded or at least successfully self-funded, and they want to invest in customer research, and they want someone who's going to work on the most important assets, such as their main pages, main landing pages, and their core emails that need to lead to like active customers and paying customers, then we're not going to be a fit. And you would say, well, that narrows the field quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary. But the reality is, as one person, I can't do all the work that's out there. There's other people just like me trying to do this work too, and they're doing fine as well. So, and the other thing that happens is when you specialize, if you think about it in pretty much any aspect of your life, when you're dealing with someone who's specializes and you care about this thing, you pay more for it. What does a heart surgeon make versus your general practitioner? A lot more.
I also think when you're getting into this, in Sophie and I, like I said, Sophie and I kind of we were buddies for a while and kind of getting started, and she has since niched into SaaS, and she's doing really well. And I think they're doing a lot of emails now, her and Nikki.
Mm-hmm.
And and we both talked about, what is our niche and what are we what are we doing? Of course, part of it is paying the bills. And I think when you get started, sometimes you don't really know. You're trying to find your way, and you try a lot of different things before you figure out what you really like to do, what you're pretty good at doing.
Right.
And then at the same time, you've got to pay the bills. So it's kind of but as it relates to a unique value proposition, I mean, I think a niche is part of that formula for coming up with a value prop, isn't it?
It is. I mean, as we saw when we went through those examples, one of the main thing that was missing in the pages that I had some critiques for was that, I wasn't sure who exactly you work with and what exactly you do and don't do. And so if I'm a client looking for someone to work with, I'm not a generic person. I'm someone who's in ed tech with email problem. And so I don't want to work with the person who does everything. I want to work with Gerard because he's he works with ed tech companies. He's solved my problem and has proof that he's solved my problem a bunch of times before. And so it's hard to imagine a value proposition as a freelancer, especially, that isn't specific, because you don't need a ton of work to do well. And so I think you're shooting yourself in the foot when you just lump yourself in with the masses who haven't thought of positioning themselves.
Yeah, I mean, and Rob, my friend from Toronto, and I talk all the time. He really likes the book Inside Advantage.
Oh, I've read that one.
Yeah, we talk about differentiation, and I tend to use that word before I do niche. I think a lot of people use niche. Oh, we gotta have a niche, and and then some people think it means, oh, it's a particular vertical that we work in, like
right,
or SaaS or whatever, and I guess differentiation is like what's different about you. That's the question I want to know when I work with somebody. What is different about you than the other person like you down there? What makes you different? And I think it goes. I've done a lot of about page evaluations, and that's a key part of that as well. What is your differentiation? What is it about your industry you don't like? That kind of thing. What are you trying to change?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just kind of an interesting thing to talk about. So we did actually get to niche a little bit.
Which I can talk about that all day. So
let me ask you this, but when we start to wrap this up, do you have an advice, for your average person, average business, B2B business out there, to improve the value prop on their homepage? You have a couple tips that you think three tips that would help them as they look at their website and go, well, how can I make my value prop in the hero area on my homepage better?
Yeah, so I have some thoughts on this for sure. So my first piece of advice, and it's really unpopular, is if you have no idea who you want to work with specifically and what you want to do for them and what you're best fit for. I personally think you should get a job and learn on the job while getting paid, maybe having some benefits. Save up some money, see what you like and don't like, develop your skills under people who are vested in actually improving your skills because you're their employee. And then when you're ready, take the leap at that point. It'll feel a lot less like a leap. You could even build up some of that momentum while you're working. And that's exactly what I did. So I'm biased here. I worked at a SaaS company. I liked the space of SaaS. I saw the promise. I got to know the language inside and out. And I started a blog on the side and got a couple of clients through there. And then I quit my job. So I did not take this big risk. The other reason I recommend that is you had mentioned how a lot of people are like, I don't really know what I want to do. So I'm just going to work with a bunch of different customers and see what I like and don't like. You can certainly do that, but it's a hard road because the cream of the crop for all these different customers are they're looking for a specialist. So what you're going to be dealing with are the people that are looking for people that will do the work for them cheap. And sometimes I wonder if you actually get a lot better by doing a lot of rushed work for subpar clients, because if you have to rush through it, you got to pay your bills. So, and if they're not paying well, you got to get a lot of work out, right? So my first advice would be, if you don't know what you want to do and who you want to do it for, see if you can find some paid work and figure that out while you're getting a salary. And then after that, the stuff is not it's not super tricky. It's more, it takes some courage, and you've got to wrap your head around the fact that by saying no to 99.9% of businesses out there, you're actually going to get more business because of that. More than likely, unless you choose some really stupid niche like writing copy for video stores or something like that. You're probably not going to do well.
But as no video stores.
Yeah, as one human being, there's a really good chance that whoever it is you want to work with and whatever type of work you'd like to do, there's more than enough work out there for you to do that. And a quick Google search for some related terms will probably show like a few copywriters at least focusing on that area. And if they've been in business for a little while, there's probably more to go around. And then once you've got that, it really just comes down to answering like a few simple questions. What is it that you do? Who is it that you do it for? And what makes you better or different or more qualified to do this thing? And then you can go a step further, like I do on my page, to you'll have a lot of people saying yes to those initial 3 questions, that this is the person for me. And then you can go below the fold like I have on my website, and I disqualify some of those people as well. That's where we're talking about how they've got to be either VC funded or successfully self-funded. They can't be just a startup with an idea. I can't add value there. So it's not rocket science, not that hard. It just takes a little bit of courage and a bit of a shift in mindset to realize that by targeting fewer people, it's going to be you're going to send out a big signal out there, and you're going to get referrals from a lot of sources that you just can't if you're a generic copywriter or freelance or whatever space you're in.
Yeah, I get a LinkedIn profile, whatever, the Profinder things. Mm-hmm. I go look at them and I'm like, this is not going to work. So anyway, that's another issue, but I appreciate you taking the time to come on the Copychat Show and lend your expertise in the area of value props and niching. And so I do appreciate that. And you want to tell people where they can find you online?
Yeah, so my website is swaycopy.com. If you're a freelancer or a consultant, there is and I think you're going to share a link in the notes, but there's a link to a approximately 9,000 word email series on this whole topic of whether or not you should choose a niche and some of the advantages and how you can go about doing it. That's completely free. And as of right now, like an idiot, I have absolutely no sale at the end of it. It's really just a response to me answering the same questions over and over again. So I just put it in one place where people can get it. And of course, when I send emails out after that, you'll get those emails as well. Social media, it's at Sway Copy on Twitter, and then just look up Josh Garofalo on LinkedIn. You'll find me there. That's probably the best place.
Garofalo, is that how you say your name?
I say it Garofalo, but Janine Garofalo says it Garofalo like Garofalo. You did. So
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
neither of us are right or wrong.
Okay, well, I didn't know. Appreciate you coming on. Thanks for joining us on the Copychat Show. Check out Josh online. Check out if you're a freelancer, I would highly encourage you to sign up for that email list and get that niche series that he sends out. And he is, and if you're a copywriter and you're some of the copywriter groups, he's usually one of the ones giving out a lot of value and for free. And him and the other bald-headed guy from Canada, they're usually pretty free with that. So appreciate their a willingness to do that. They're very, very good about helping out other copywriters getting started. So anyway, we will be back for another episode here in a little while. So thanks for joining the Copychat Show, and have a great day.